Texas baseball's slide continues. Meanwhile, the NBA playoffs are heating up, and our NBA analyst Steve Helwick joins us to talk about those. Then we talk hockey, and we finish off the show, as always, with the fun fact of the week. This is the Thomas Fitch Show. Welcome into the Thomas Fitch Show, presented by 1-0 Sports. I'm your host, Thomas Fitch. We're going to kick off the show with some Texas baseball. Before we get started with that, make sure if you're listening to this or watching it, make sure you subscribe, you like, you comment. Next week we'll have a mailbag, so feel free to submit questions, submit hot takes, and you get shouted out on the show, and I'll talk about whatever you want me to talk about. So let's get started with Texas baseball. And it's time to sound the emergency horns, pun not intended. I don't know what's wrong with this team. You look at over the weekend, lose the series to West Virginia, and at least it was better than the Oklahoma State series where you get swept 15-0, 10-2, 11-10. All three games were close. Obviously, Texas taking the Sunday game, winning 10-2. That looked good. But they lose. Bullpen lets up a late run, lose 3-2 on Friday. Bullpen lets up late runs on Saturday, lose 9-8. And then Sunday, they're able to hold on for a 10-2 win. But, the problem really is the bullpen. And, brought it up last week. It's still the problem this week. Bryce Elder continues to pitch pretty well. He's got something like a 2.97 ERA, which is, for a college pitcher, any ERA under 3 for a starting pitcher, that's pretty darn good. And, Elder's done a great job. Gave up 2 runs in the game, but, reliever comes in, gives up another run. Same thing in on Saturday's game where the Horns lost 9-8. Horns were up going into the 8th. Give up a run in the 8th, 2 runs in the 9th. They go on and lose that game. And, this is the tale of the season for Texas, is not being able to hold on to leads in the 8th and 9th innings. And if they're not able to do that, there's a decent chance this team doesn't make the postseason. And then, obviously, yesterday, Horns go on the road to Corpus Christi and lose 2-8. So, it is just mind-boggling to me what this team has done from, the beginning of the season where they beat LSU, sweep LSU, take 1 of 4 against, one of the top teams in the nation, Stanford, on the road. They win the series against Tech. They split the series against Arkansas. And then all of a sudden they lose the series to TCU. They blow that big lead on that Sunday against TCU. They were able to sweep Xavier the next weekend, but all those games were close. They lose to A&M at home in the midweek game. They split the series with Baylor. They lose to Kansas State. They get swept by Oklahoma State. This team is teetering on the edge of not making the tournament. 25-22, 6-11 in conference. 6-11 in conference is terrible. And I know it's a deeper Big 12 conference than the past, but getting swept by Oklahoma State, losing at home in the home series to Kansas State doesn't look good. And, I keep saying it, the Horns got to win out the rest of the series. Horns got to win out the rest of the season. They got Kansas on the road in Lawrence, and they're home against Texas State, home against Incarnate Word, and home against Oklahoma for a 3-game series to close out the season. They gotta at least win both those series, and probably win both of those midweek games, which are both at home, if they want to have a chance at making the tournament. And it's insane that we're talking about what Texas needs to do to make the tournament at this point in the season when, a month ago we were talking about, can they host a super regional? Can they, Are they a team that can make it to Omaha? And now we're just saying, can they make it to the regionals? So something needs to change. I know there are reports of how do I want to put this? There are reports that the players aren't getting along great with David Pierce. I'm not exactly sure how accurate those are, but I've heard those reports multiple times. But at the end of the day, it's a bullpen issue. Texas can bat pretty well. They're putting up a decent amount of runs most games. The starters are pitching Texas into good enough situations to be able to win the game come 7th, 8th, 9th inning, and then the relievers come in, and that's the game. All right, let's send it over now to our interview with Steve Helwick talking NBA playoffs. Okay, we now welcome in our NBA analyst, Steve Helwick. Half the time when I say, analyst, it's just like a person. You're, actually, you're our resident NBA analyst.
I guess so.
All right, so let's break down all the series going on right now. Pretty chalky year this year, followed March Madness. What would you say of the first-round matchups was the biggest surprise?
I don't think anyone really picked Portland to beat Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City's a team with a lot of playoff experience, 2 All-Stars, Russell Westbrook and Paul George. Just a solid team built all around. And the fact that Portland, without their third best player and their center, Yusuf Nurkic, they won that series in 5 games and really shut down Paul George for the majority of the series. I know George had those shoulder issues, but still, he just didn't look like himself. And Damian Lillard just putting the cap on the series. The biggest surprise of the series of the playoffs is Damian Lillard taking that shot.
Yeah. 38, 37 feet.
He had so much time to shoot.
To just drive in, he needed 1 point.
And that was the hardest flex in his post-game press conference when he said it was comfortable range and he didn't want the game decided by a whistle. A ref call. I guess he didn't want to get fouled and shoot game-winning free throws. It was bold, and now he has 2 of the 5 walk-off series-winning shots in NBA history.
Yeah, it was incredible. I talked about it last week. It hurt as a Thunder fan, but it was also I'm not even mad.
You can't get mad at that shot. I mean, if Damian Lillard can make that shot, he can make that shot. Honestly, Paul George played decent defense. I won't even guard him from there.
No, there's no reason to, because you figure with 7 seconds left in a tie ball game, you're going to drive in and either drive and kick or try to go up and draw a foul.
Lillard's built differently.
Yeah, he is. I mean, what is this? Said he's 7 of 8 from 30-plus feet?
8 of 12, and the rest of the NBA
yeah.
is shooting sub 30%. It's 20% on that.
Yeah, which is insane. Let's start off talking about in round 2 the Trailblazers Nuggets series. Nuggets take game 1. How deep is this series going to go, and is it just going to be Nuggets dominating the whole way?
I mean, I think the Nuggets got a really good matchup in Portland. Mm-hmm. This is a team that they went 3-1 against in the regular season, and the one loss was when the Nuggets were resting their starters at the end of the year, and Portland basically had to do a wild comeback against the Nuggets' third-string players. And I think a lot of it is the Jokic matchup.
Yep.
Don't have Yusuf Nurkic. If you had Yusuf Nurkic, that's a 7-foot, 280-pound guy that you have guarding Jokic. But now you have Enes Kanter, who's not known for being a great defender.
No, not at all.
And Jokic can just expose him. He had 37 points, really didn't miss a shot. He got to the line 12 times last game. And when you double-team Jokic in the post, that's also a double-edged sword because Jokic is the best passing big man I think I've ever watched play the sport.
Yeah.
And he knows where everyone is during those double teams. He'll pass out, and there'll always be someone driving. He'll find a Harris or Barton or Murray driving or open for a 3. And the Nuggets, I mean, they haven't really hit the 3s yet at the rate they were in the regular season this playoff, but that seems like it is likely to come with the Nuggets just hitting those 3s and then getting those open drives just because double-teaming Jokic. So the Blazers really don't have any answers defensively for guarding Jokic, which could mean the series could be over in 5 or 6. The one thing, I mean, the Blazers have Damian Lillard. And if you have Damian Lillard on your team, you always have a shot to win.
Yeah.
I mean, last playoffs he got swept, but he's bounced back in the best way possible. But my concern is Lillard had such an excellent game in Game 1 by all standards. 39 points, 12 of 21 shooting. He was hitting from 30 feet again. He was getting to the line. Offensively, he had an excellent game, and the Blazers weren't really close. I mean, they lost that game in the third quarter when the Nuggets went on that big run right there. And they also got contributions from some of their other players. McCollum, he was on and off in the game, but Kanter was great down low. Jokic isn't the best defender. He's just a big body.
Yep.
But Kanter was really good down low.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he did a great job with the fact that he had an injured right shoulder.
Yeah. I mean, he was a game-time decision, and he played great offensively and really helped Portland in that. I think this series comes down to tonight's game. If the Nuggets win Game 2, I think they'll be up 3-1 when they go back to Denver. Yeah. Portland's going to win one game in Rip City at least. But if Portland cannot stop Jokic tonight, that should be series over, and that would send the Nuggets to the Western Conference Finals for the first time since, I think, 2009 when they played the Lakers.
Yeah, I mean, you brought up the matchup without Yusuf Nurkic. I mean, I remember back when the Nuggets were playing the Spurs, and I said, whoever wins this series, I think has a good chance of making it to the Western Conference Finals just because you have such an advantage, in the paint.
Yeah, I don't think it would have been as much for the Spurs just because they don't have... LaMarcus Aldridge isn't someone who dominates the paint as much. I mean, he's a turnaround mid-range guy. Yeah, I don't really think Jakob Poeltl's a huge advantage in that matchup there. But Denver is the perfect matchup against Portland. I mean, they have all the tools, and they space the floor really well. And I said, when you have a passer as great as Jokic and you can get that ball movement around with good spacing, I mean, the Nuggets are just going to dominate offensively. They had 121 points in that series. And Portland was shooting like 60% in the first quarter, and still Denver was hanging with them. So Portland played a great game. They just couldn't finish out on top.
Yeah, I mean, this is a series of two teams that I wouldn't mind seeing advance to the Western Conference Finals because they've, you mentioned Nuggets haven't been there since 2009. I don't know if the Trailblazers have ever been there.
Yeah, I think 2000 or 2001. The Jailblazers.
Yeah. So it's been
with Rasheed Wallace and Bonzi Wells. And...
So yeah, I mean, it's been such a long time. So either of these teams, whoever wins, I think I'll probably be pulling for them. Let's go to the other side of the Western Conference Finals with two teams that
will actually make the NBA Finals.
Will actually make the NBA Finals, and also I hate the Warriors and the Rockets. Let's talk about Game 1. And actually, I'm going to do, this is going to be terrible radio, but I'm going to do my best James Harden impression. Ready? I don't know. Foul. That's a foul, ref. That's a foul. For those of y'all who couldn't see because you're listening to this, I did a long jump, kicked out my legs, and drew the foul call because I'm James Harden. Steve, what are your thoughts on the Game 1 officiating?
I thought there were the 3 Klay Thompson closeouts in the first half. I thought one of them was a foul for certain. That was the one where Harden was on the right wing, and he made the shot anyway and was complaining to the ref on the way back. That time, Harden actually landed where he released, and Thompson invaded his closing space. On the other times, I think there was one that with Thompson that was certainly not a foul, and one that had a little gray area where Harden moved a little forward and Thompson kind of invaded the landing space. So I'll say there should have been maybe 1.5 out of 3 calls there. The Draymond Green one, I don't want to hear anybody arguing about that one because James Harden, you watch him when he takes an open 3 or a contested 3, which he doesn't do much. He only took 18 uncontested 3s this year. He lands in his proper space. His goal on that Draymond Green play was not to make the shot. No. It didn't seem like it. It was to jump forward like a long jumper and kick out his legs. Kick out his legs at Draymond Green and draw the foul.
Kicking out your legs is a Draymond Green move.
Yeah, and that's not basketball right there. Yeah. I'm glad that refs didn't call it at the end because that would have been an awful call. Just James Harden, I mean, he wouldn't have landed balanced. He would have landed way back, and that if Draymond Green wasn't standing there. So I really don't like the move. But I'm very happy to see that a lot of the officiating blunders or whatever, it was corrected in Game 2.
It really was, yeah.
Game 2 was a beautiful game of basketball where we just saw two great teams go at it and play. Although the Rockets played from behind the entire game, never had a lead, it was a great...
They kept it close.
Yes, it was an entertaining fourth quarter, and it seemed like if Chris Paul hit that shot from the top of the key in the late fourth quarter, Rockets would have cut it to 3, and if they had to stop, they would have had a good chance to get back into it.
Yeah, no, I do. I think obviously it's going to be a really good series. I think it probably goes 6 or 7. We'll see. Houston definitely needs to take one or probably both games in Houston.
They have to take Game 3. No team's ever come back 3-0. And I know the Warriors have those 3-1 jokes, but they're
3-0, that's not happening.
That's not happening.
But going back to the foul thing, I mean, everybody knows that James Harden just has a way of drawing fouls, and there's an extent to where he does it within the rules, but there's also another extent where it's like, okay, he's winning MVPs because 10 or 15 of his 30 points a night are on foul shots where he's just trying. His whole goal is to draw a foul, and I think that is cheating to an extent. Like, yes, it's a foul call, but if your goal is to try and draw a foul, I think it's cheap.
Yeah, it's just like in football with the pass interference. If you're not even trying to go for the catch and you're just trying to run into the defender and throw yourself on the ground, I don't like that call. So there's a lot of times when Harden drives in and he'll just throw his arms up, put the beard in the air, try to draw fouls in that way. I mean, there's videos of some of his most ridiculous calls in the past of him not getting touched and throwing his beard up. Or there's one of my favorites where he piggyback rides Michael Carter Williams and draws the foul somehow. So he has inventive ways to do it. He's a great player offensively. Absolutely. I mean, he's one of the most unguardable players in the league. A great step back move, one of the best guys at driving the league. I mean, he hit a lot of contested threes so far this series just with his step back. I mean, he's an incredible player, and I just don't think all the drawing the fouls needs to really be an element of this game. Luckily, I don't think it was much in Game 2. He only got to the line 9 times, which is below average. I was below the line of 10.5 set in Las Vegas on how many free throws he would take. So
that's incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say this about the whole closeout deal, because I do hate when people just kick out their legs. But I'll also say this. I mean, we know what Zaza did 2 years ago. We know that the Warriors kind of have a knack for just sticking that foot under the landing area. Well, is now it's a flagrant foul now?
Yeah, the thing you have to watch, though, was the Kawhi one that happened on the back foot, and Kawhi was actually going backward when that happened.
Right,
so
he wasn't kicking his legs out. He was just making a regular shot.
That one should be more concerning because Zaza really in front. If the defender's going far backward,
you have to try to get your foot there. Yeah.
And that was a play that ended the Spurs dynasty.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. Let's not bring that up. On that note, or actually, we'll wrap up the West. Who do you see advancing from this series?
Warriors, which means the Warriors get to the finals. My original pick was Warriors in 7 because I thought the Rockets would steal one of the first 2. I thought it'd be a long series just like last year. But if the Warriors will probably win one of the 3 games at Houston left, I'm going to say Warriors in 6. They'll close it out at Houston. They'll win the game at Oracle. I think Houston takes the next 2. Mm-hmm. Warriors will take the game at Oracle and then the Rocket, and then take it in the Toyota Center Game 6. Yeah. I mean, they took it in Houston last year in Game 7, so it shouldn't be too big of an issue for them.
Yeah. So you say they win the Western Conference Finals, go to the NBA Finals?
Yes.
All right, so now let's go to the East before we hear who you have coming out of the East. Let's start with the 76ers Raptors series. And I would say this is the other series kind of keeping the NBA interesting because you have Joel Embiid and the whole Sixers they really haven't caused drama this series. They did last series, and I'm kind of waiting for something to happen. But I feel like we need the Sixers in these playoffs to make it interesting.
Well, the Raptors don't have any personality, but the thing is, I actually think all 4 series are great for the NBA, and I think every one could have gone either way from the start. I mean, the Rockets are a couple plays away from stealing Game 1, so I think all 4 of these series are very tightly contested, in the East especially. I can't tell you with more than like 50% confidence or like 30% confidence who's coming out of the East.
Yeah.
Because all 4 teams right now, both road teams, the Celtics and Sixers, have stolen home court advantage. Sixers had a really good bounce back in Game 2 against the Raptors. They got crushed in Game 1.
Yeah, they did.
It looked like they were just going to get exposed the entire series by the Raptors. Raptors, Nick Nurse has been great with the lineup, something Dwayne Casey struggled with a lot in Toronto. Kawhi Leonard was going off, 45 and 11, was great defensively too. And in Game 2, the Raptors, this is one thing that's promising for the Raptors. I don't think the Raptors can play that badly again. Yeah. Because they only had, I think they went like 2 of 11 off the bench and scored 5 bench points that game.
Yeah.
Like Serge Ibaka, he was not having a good game there. They weren't getting any contributions from Fred VanVleet, who got shut out with 0 points. I mean, they played Jody Meeks for like 2 minutes, and that was one of the worst defensive.
Five bench points?
Yeah, 5 bench points. And that with Meeks, that was just awful defensive series. Yeah. But the Raptors starters, other than Kawhi Leonard, who went 13 of 24 and had 35 points, another great game for someone who's playing like a top 3 player in the world right now. Danny Green hits 1 shot, 1 of 6 from 3s. Yeah. He had the most wide open look to tie the game late. And Marc Gasol, he went 1 of 6. But we'll get back to Gasol in a minute because he did really well in other areas. And Pascal Siakam, he didn't have the game that he's been having all playoffs. I mean, he dropped 30 in the Orlando series, 29 in Game 1, went 12 of 15 that game, was a great marksman from 3-point range. This wasn't the Siakam that we were expecting to see in Toronto in Game 2, so that was another thing that hurt the Raptors. But the Sixers didn't play well either. I mean, this was a great defensive game. When you look at this series as a whole and you see all the great defenders that there are, Danny Green, Kawhi Leonard, Marc Gasol, I just named 2 former Defensive Players of the Year, Jimmy Butler, Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons. I mean, this is just so much length in this series. Great lineups overall used by these teams, and it'll be a more low-scoring series, I think, going forward. But the thing was, Joel Embiid has been shut down. He has yet to score more than 16 points 2 games through this series, and the Sixers still got a win out of it. And that's just Jimmy Butler had a great game with 30 points, and they hit a lot of timely shots. But Embiid won them the game.
Yeah, he did.
I mean, when they needed a bucket, they had Embiid at the top of his key, drive in, just do like a dream shake-like fake, and get it in. I mean, Marc Gasol had been shutting him down most of the game, most of the series. When they needed a bucket, Embiid got it, and that's a great sign for the process right there. And Sixers won despite Ben Simmons having 6 points, despite J.J. Redick being off, despite Tobias Harris scoring single digits.
Yeah.
So I guess that's also promising for the Sixers because both teams played pretty bad. It was still a great game.
Yeah.
And the Sixers managed to tie the series. I feel like if the Raptors went up 2-0, I think we'd call this series just about over, even though we hadn't seen a game in Philly yet, just because the Raptors had been playing such good basketball ever since Game 1 against the Magic.
Yeah, so it's 1-1 going back to Philly, or going to Philly for the first time in the series. Who do you have taking it all?
Raptors in 6, I have. That was my original pick in the series. I'm going to stand by it. And I'm really high on this Raptors team. It's not your old Raptors.
No.
They don't have DeMar DeRozan anymore. Kyle Lowry's turned into more of a third option behind Leonard and Siakam.
Yeah, he doesn't have to be a star as much.
Well, he did. Kyle Lowry, I need to talk about what Kyle Lowry did. This man had the game on the line, down 3 points, had the ball, guarded by Tobias Harris. And I've watched the clip over and over, and I know it's intentional. He tried to nutmeg Tobias Harris, and one mixtape move. This is something you see in like the streets of New York with like
you get through the legs,
Bone Collector. He tried to like NBA Street Volume 2 this game. And then he instantly regretted it. I mean, he got Tobias in the spin cycle, but then Kyle Lowry had to like go all the way around him, dive for the ball, still somehow got it to Kawhi Leonard, who passed it off to Danny Green, and you couldn't have asked for a better look from 3. But the fact that Kyle Lowry had the guts to nutmeg Tobias Harris in a playoff game down 3, I just cannot wrap my head around that. Kyle Lowry has really entertained us this playoffs in more ways than one. He started with a 0-point game, came back, had a great series to finish the Orlando Magic off, and then he does this. But I think overall the Raptors They don't have to rely on Lowry as much. I think Siakam and Leonard that duo is really going to carry them through the series. I think they'll outplay Tobias Harris and Jimmy Butler, the small forward and power forward for the Sixers going forward. And Gasol's defense on Embiid, it kind of reminds me of last year when Horford was shutting down Embiid in the second round, and the Sixers just looked lifeless against the Celtics, the hospital Celtics, who beat them in 5 games, which was, I think, the biggest surprise of last year's playoffs. So the Sixers, they tend to struggle sometimes when they face adversity. It looked like it was almost going to get to that point in the Nets series. It didn't get there. But based on how they performed last year against Boston, I think this Toronto team's going to take this one and get to the conference finals.
Yeah, so Embiid struggles and just the 76ers struggles overall in the playoffs, since they've been making the playoffs the last couple of years. You think is that worrisome for them going forward? Because I felt like in the past it was, hey, they're struggling, but they're young. And now that they have this experience and they're still struggling, if they can't make it out, if they can't make it to the conference finals and, can't have a good showing there, is there some panic in Philadelphia?
There might be, but I still think this team's really young. This is only their second year in the playoffs under Brett Brown.
Yeah.
And Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons. I mean, these guys have lots of good years on them left. I mean, so many teams failed so many times before they reached a point like this.
Yeah.
Like the Raptors, they only had one conference finals under that core that was consistently getting top 3 seeds. Mm-hmm. But the 76ers, the two things that they need depth.
Yep.
And they need shooting. Losing last year in the playoffs, it's crazy to hear, but Marco Bellinelli and Ersan Ilyasova were 2 of their key pieces because they just seemed like walking buckets. Like when Ben Simmons would kick it out to the 3-point line for them, it seemed just automatic, especially in the Miami Heat series last year. This year, they really lacked that consistent 3-point shooting. Last game shot sub 30% in the win. And J.J. Redick just hasn't been feeling himself this playoffs. We haven't seen too much out of Redick other than that bucket against the Nets in Game 4 that really helped them pull ahead in the series, and Mike Scott hit the game winner. That was probably their best shooting stretch, it seems, of the series. I mean, you have Ben Simmons, doesn't shoot threes. Joel Embiid, he has been off this entire playoff run.
Yeah, he has.
I mean, now he's just doing that move that I don't think anyone's going to fall for, where he pump fakes at the top of the 3-point line and drive in. It's a good move, especially if Embiid can hit them, but he's hitting right now I think 20% this playoff, so it hasn't been a good look for him.
Efficient, no.
But then you look at the rest of the Sixers bench, and James Ennis, he can shoot threes, and that's really about it to get you a consistent 3-point. Because T.J. McConnell's really been out of this series just because Toronto's so big, and he can't really guard many Raptors players that are on the court unless it's Fred VanVleet or something. I mean, so T.J. McConnell's been neutralized out of the series, as is Boban Marjanovic. I mean, Boban, the Raptors have such good floor spacing. Marc Gasol and Serge Ibaka, I mean, those guys will hang out at the 3-point line. A lot of times they've turned into more shooters recently.
Yeah.
So Boban just sits in the paint normally on defense and anchors the lane. So Boban's not really going to play in the rest of the series. So the Sixers have to tighten their bench even more, and that's going to be something that really hurts Philly going forward, I think.
Yeah. We'll see what happens there. Probably going to be, a great series. But let's go to our final round 2 matchup, Bucks and Celtics. Series tied 1-1. Celtics absolutely dominated game 1. Bucks came back and pretty much dominated game 2. Where is this series headed?
To 7 games,
just
like last year. But last year it was a 2-seed undermanned Celtics squad against a 7-seed Bucks team that didn't really have any coaching or any offensive sets, and now both teams are highly improved. I mean, we saw 2 completely different games. The Celtics dominated game 1 by a run they went on in the third quarter. Last night, the Bucks, it was a 74-71 game, right. And the Bucks went on a 31-4 run to close it out.
That's insane.
So both games just had huge second half runs where the team separated themselves, and I think that Eric Bledsoe's the engine that makes this Bucks team go.
Yeah.
Eric Bledsoe was absent in game 1, non-existent, and that happened a lot of the games last year in the Celtics series when he was getting punked by Terry Rozier, who was calling him Drew Bledsoe and showing up in the Patriots jerseys to the games.
That's right.
That was a fun storyline of last year's playoffs. But Bledsoe came back last night, had 21 points, shot pretty efficiently, and just was a factor all around the court. And for the rest of the Bucks, that was their best three-point shooting performance in franchise history in the playoffs. They hit 23s. Chris Middleton responsible of 7 of them, hit 7 of 10. Giannis was playing well. I mean, Game 1, he was shut down by Al Horford and Aaron Baines, was getting a lot of those buckets to fall. And the thing about Giannis is, going into the playoffs, when he's a pick-and-roll ball handler, you know that teams are going to go under his screens just because he's not a shooting threat. That's one part of his game that he hasn't really developed yet. But it's been promising for Milwaukee that he shot over 50% from the three-point line this series. I believe he went 3 of 5 in Game 1 and 2 of 4 in Game 2. And he's actually hitting these threes. So the Celtics are daring him to shoot, and Giannis is taking the Celtics' offers and doing it because they're just going to keep going under his screens. But I like Giannis best as the screener in these pick-and-roll sets with Bledsoe, where Bledsoe, who's very good at driving to the hoop, can run the pick-and-roll with Giannis, and that's a really effective play on Boston. Although Al Horford, he's been a great defender down low, doesn't have the most size in the league. I mean, Al Horford's the closest thing we have to, like, late 30s Tim Duncan now in the NBA. He kind of reminds me of a smaller, like a not as great as rim protector, late 30s Tim Duncan.
Yeah.
So I like the Celtics in that regard. I like a lot of the... I mean, this is a little aside. I don't think there's any veteran in the NBA I think that deserves a ring more than Al Horford. Maybe Marc Gasol.
Did Al Horford really not have a ring?
No.
I guess
he's never been in the finals.
You know where I get confused is because he was with Florida when they won, and so I've always kind of like conflated that with like, oh yeah, he got a title, and it's like, not one that counts.
I remember I predicted the 2015 Hawks to lose to the 2015 Warriors in 7 games in the finals that year. So I thought he was going to be there. But I'm a big Al Horford fan, and I think just like Bledsoe's the key to the Bucks going forward, I think Horford is to the Celtics. He had that 20-point, 11-rebound double-double in Game 1, had that block over Giannis that went viral where he just obliterated him at the rim, and he was what helped he fueled the Celtics team last year when they were missing Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward, although Hayward's less of a factor now. But if the Celtics want to win this series, you can't afford Jason Tatum to go 2 of 10. Tatum's looking really passive now, not looking like the player he did last playoffs when he was confident, and Kyrie Irving going 4 of 18. And going on that, the one thing that the Celtics team this year, they're too reliant on Kyrie Irving. Last year without him, I mean, there were nights where it was Terry Rozier's night, nights where it was Jaylen Brown's night, Jason Tatum, Al Horford in the playoffs, Marcus Morris. We were getting great contributions from everyone.
Right.
But I think Kyrie Irving, he's trying to do too much, and that's a double-edged sword for Boston because sometimes it'll help him because Kyrie gets into his inferno mode where he's hotter than almost any player in the league. There's a couple players that have that, like Kemba and Klay Thompson, where they catch fire, they're unstoppable. We call it untucked jersey Kyrie.
Yeah, exactly.
And then there's just times like last night where he can't hit a shot. He's 4 of 18. He's held to single-digit points, and Milwaukee just does a great job of shutting him out of the game. And Boston's not going to win one of those games when they're expecting that much production out of Kyrie Irving. So I think Boston should, when they approach it more as a team and everyone's getting equal dividends, then I think Boston's a better team. And I know Brad Stevens is as good, and Mike Budenholzer. These are 2 of the best coaches in the NBA. We'll make great adjustments. And the thing about a 7-game series, this one should go back and forth because every game will be the team adjusting to what went wrong in the previous game. So I think it's going to be back and forth, back and forth. I think my pick's Boston at 7 still for the end of this series. This Boston team's gained a lot of veteran playoff experience over the years. Giannis, this is his first playoff series win. The Bucks hadn't won a series since 2001, and they're still trying to, I think, work their way with this roster. It's a talented roster. They're going to get Malcolm Brogdon back for Game 3, I think, and that's a really important addition, one of their most efficient shooters. And a good trivia fact is he is now one of the, I don't know, it's like 9 or 10 members of the 50-40-90 club.
Wow.
Yeah, he shot 50% on field goals, 40% on threes, and 90% on free throws this year, which the other names in that list are like Larry Bird, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Reggie Miller, so Steve Nash. So now you throw Malcolm Brogdon, and it'll win you some money at the bar.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, all right, so we're running out of time, but real quick, who you got winning it all?
I have the Warriors surprise winning it all over the Raptors in 6. I don't think this Warriors team's as good as ones in the past just because I think their depth's struggling a little. Although Andre Iguodala's had a great game last night against the Rockets. He's having a fantastic series so far, finding open lanes. He's a great cutter, and with the Warriors' ball movement, and Iguodala is getting open and getting a lot of easy buckets in there. So, but I think that the bench is going to be an issue for Golden State because they've lost a lot of depth in recent years. I mean, they were playing your Rebco in the first quarter last night. So I do have the Warriors still winning, just they have a lot of talent with Curry, Durant, Thompson. I mean, it's hard to pick against those guys. I have them beating the Raptors. I think the Raptors are the most complete team in the East. They're the only team through the 4 Eastern Conference semis games so far that hasn't been blown out yet.
Yep.
And they had that one loss to the Magic, but ever since they've looked pretty good in the playoffs. Kawhi Leonard, you could make a case over Giannis that he's the best and most complete player in the Eastern Conference just because there's a chart I saw yesterday where it showed the true shooting percentages of players in the regular season and playoffs.
Yeah.
And every player's goes slightly down except Kawhi, it shoots up.
Wow.
Kawhi Leonard is a cold-blooded killer.
Yeah,
and, former Finals MVP. And it was a great addition for Toronto, and overall Toronto is built for war offensively and defensively. They'll go to the finals. I think they'll beat Boston in 6 or 7 games in the conference finals and then play Golden State, who they'll give a good series. It'll be better than the last 2 Cavs-Warriors series. I'm so glad we don't have to watch Cleveland again because last 2 years we knew they had 0 chance and it was getting old and stale. I think Golden State versus any of these East teams is a fun series that everyone should watch. So, I'm really excited for the rest of how these playoffs shape up.
Yeah. All right. Well, Steve, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
All right. Let's talk some hockey before we get to the fun fact of the week. Our Sharks, San Jose Sharks, are up 2-1 in the series. They won 4-2 last night in Colorado. Game 4, I think, is tomorrow night, also in Colorado. But big win for the Sharks to get back the home ice advantage. Is that what they call it in hockey? Home ice advantage. Big hat trick by Logan Couture, the center. Just a heck of a game. The first 2 goals were the ones that counted. He had a third goal in not extra time, but when empty net goal. Still learning the terminology here, but empty net goal and then 2 others. So really good game for him. Also, someone who I think has played well this series, Martin Jones, not necessarily known for being the best goalkeeper. The Sharks team generally known for their offense, but he had 27 shots against, only gave up 8 goals, 25 saves. It's a .926 save percentage. For those of you who don't know hockey, like me, that's pretty darn good. So Martin Jones and Logan Couture, definitely the players of the night in that game. And looks like, if I was making predictions on this series, looks like it's going to be a close series. I think it goes 6 or 7. The Sharks took game 1, Avalanche took game 2, Sharks took game 3, but even game 3 Sharks got up 2-0. Avalanche came back and tied it up in the third period before the Sharks scored the 2 go-ahead goals. But the Avalanche are fighting hard. They're one of those teams that just about no lead feels safe. And because of that, I think it's going to be a great series. I think it's going to come down to the wire. Hopefully our Sharks, I can be biased about that. Hopefully our Sharks pull it off. Also, hopefully someone from the Sharks sends me some merch. Still haven't gotten any word from that. I also have a little improvement tip for hockey, how to make hockey better. And I think this is what hockey is missing to make it, a bigger, more popular sport like I know that they're trying to do. Here's the rule change. If you ever watch hockey and you ever see like a really good goal, oftentimes what happens is the puck, say like they pull the goalie, so it's an empty net goal. The puck bounces in, and it shoots right back out, and it's the least satisfying thing ever. A goal should be satisfying. Soccer does this great. You kick the ball, it hangs in the net, and then it drops, and it doesn't bounce out. When I see these pucks ricocheting in and then popping back out, it happens so fast, half the time I don't even realize it's a goal until the players score. So hockey needs to develop nets that will keep the puck from bouncing out, and I honestly think people would watch hockey like 10 times more than they do right now, which I realize is a low number, but these are the little changes that hockey needs to make if they ever want to grow the brand to an attainable level of success, I guess you could say. All right, so that was talking hockey. Sharks up. Sharks going to win it all. Calling it right now. All right, let's get to our fun fact of the week. And the first fun fact sponsored by Travel 100 Group. Happy Travel Advisor Day. Fun facts. Fun facts. We get multiple fun facts in this fun fact ad read. Did you know that 41% of millennials are planning trips through a travel advisor more than any other age group? Actually kind of surprised me. Over 20%, almost said 200, over 20% of travel advisors have visited 50 countries or more. Hashtag Travel Advisor Day. And the picture says because you want to go where you can't Google. So that was brought to you by Travel 100 Group at Travel 100 Group. Actually was not sponsored, but that's a good reminder that for those of you out there who are looking to sponsor someone, for those of you listening to this, I'm pointing at myself. We're looking for sponsors. We'll take anyone, any amount of money. Heck, you send me a shirt, I'll talk about your brand. The other fun fact, since that was kind of a quote-unquote ad, this is from Father Rasha at Rasha256. He says, fun fact, even the spray allergy meds can, in fact, make your stomach unhappy. Well, Father Rasha, I think the problem is you're not supposed to spray allergy meds on your stomach. You're supposed to spray them in your nose, and then it'll get rid of the congestion. So clearly the problem here is about the placement and application of the allergy meds and not the allergy meds. All right, that is all we have from this week. We have the season finale coming up next week. A lot of guests. Great show, going out with a bang. But until then, I'm Thomas Fitch, and this is the Thomas Fitch Show. Wow, I really messed that up. From the Thomas Fitch Show, I'm Thomas Fitch. Hook 'em horns.
Let go of everything.